He didn't come to buy anything. Not a drink. Not a weapon. And definitely not a woman sitting in the rain with a child clinging to her side. The sign said only $1. As if her worth could be counted in loose change. She didn't speak. Didn't beg. She just looked up. With eyes too tired for fear. And too steady for shame. He gave the coin. She stood. And the child stood with her. He didn't ask who the baby was. He thought she'd explain. She never did. But by the time he found out, it was too late to forget either of them. Rain spilled down the rusted walls of the alley like the planet itself was weeping. Water collected in shallow, oily pools where broken crates and shattered glass tried to float. A flickering red neon sign sputtered overhead, its message crude and urgent, only $1. It buzzed like an insect dying slowly in the cold. Calen stopped walking. The weight of his coat, soaked and heavy, clung to his frame like old guilt. He had wandered these back corridors of the border market dozens of times. Buying parts. Trading stories. Avoiding memories. But never had he seen the sign. And never had he seen her. She was kneeling. A woman, if one could still call her that, sat motionless in the rain. Silver white hair fell across her face like a curtain drawn in mourning. Her skin, a pale aquamarine, shimmered faintly where the light touched it. Tattooed arms braced against the wet stone. Beside her, barefoot and dressed in a red cotton dress now darkened by the rain, stood a child. Human. Maybe 3 years old. Blonde. Silent. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Not even when Calen's boots splashed close. His eyes scanned for signs: slavery rings, bioimplants, collars. Nothing. No chains. No price tags. Just the neon. He looked at the woman. She looked back. Not pleading. Not fearful. Her eyes were sharp, not wild, not broken. They were aware. Ancient. And tired. The girl clutched the woman's shirt with tiny fingers. Her gaze, too, never left his face. Calen reached into his pocket. He didn't know why. Habit, maybe. Curiosity. Or perhaps because there was something fundamentally obscene about assigning a price to whatever this was. He pulled out a single silver credit chip and held it up to the red glow. "This a joke," he muttered. "To no one. To the universe." The woman didn't move. But her eyes flickered to the chip. Then back to him. He held it out. 1 bead. 2. Then, slowly, she rose. Not cautiously. Not submissively. Just, deliberately. Like a ritual she had rehearsed too many times. She helped the child to her feet and turned her body fully to face him. Calen took a breath. He didn't know what kind. Relief. Regret. The credit left his hand. It clinked into a dented donation tray nailed to the wall. And just like that, she stepped forward. The child followed. Calen didn't speak. He turned and walked. They followed. The rain didn't let up. In fact, it fell harder now. Drowning the sounds of the market. washing away any logic to what had just happened. He didn't ask for a name. She didn't give one. They crossed under broken eaves and between puddles lit by the fractured glow of alien advertisements. The little girl's feet made no sound. Calen glanced back once. Just once. The woman's eyes were on the horizon. The child's were on him. He felt something shift in his gut. Not dread. Not anger. Just a slow, spreading awareness, he hadn't saved them. He'd invited them into his story. And he had no idea what that would cost. Calen didn't say much on the walk back. Not that there was anything to say. The rain had softened to a mist, but the silence between them stayed heavy, like vapor that couldn't clear. He glanced back only once, just to make sure they were still following. They were. Neither said a word. The apartment door opened with a hiss. He stepped in first. The room greeted them with the scent of rust and something older like dust soaked in years. The floor, once a polished imitation of wood, was now cracked laminate, curling at the corners. The walls carried stains from heat surges and failed patchwork. He tossed a coat onto the nearest hook. She didn't remove hers. The child stood still, bare feet on the cold floor. Her dress, still damp, clung to her knees. "You can sit," he offered. His voice didn't carry authority, just tired routine. She didn't move. He gestured toward the mattress in the corner. A blanket lay folded on top, the cleanest thing in the apartment. "It's not much," he added, almost apologetically. Still nothing. But then she crouched. Not to rest. Just to unfasten the belt from her coat. She laid it flat on the floor beside the mattress. Removed her outer layer. Rolled it into a shape. A makeshift pillow. She patted it once, gently. The child sat. Cross-legged. No protest, no hesitation. She leaned into the cloth instinctively. Her eyelids drooped with the ease of someone used to falling asleep anywhere. Calen filled a metal cup with lukewarm water and set it near them. Then another. One for her, one for him. She didn't touch hers. "Do you have a name?" The woman didn't flinch. Her eyes scanned the room again as if still unsure of its safety. She didn't answer. He sighed, more to himself. He sat on a crate beside the window, staring out at the streaks of orange light filtering through grime. Neon signs blinked outside, fractured by years of neglect. Somewhere far off, a hover truck rumbled. Somewhere closer, someone shouted and then stopped. He looked back at them. The girl was already asleep, her small hand curled around the frayed edge of the coat. The woman, still kneeling, stared at nothing. "You're not her mother, are you?" he asked. Not accusing. Just wondering aloud. No answer. But her lips tightened. Briefly. Then relaxed again. She stood, finally. Not toward the mattress, but the far wall. Leaned there, arms crossed, head bowed. The minutes passed. The room was full of small sounds, the hum of the heater struggling to stay alive, the dripping pipe near the door, the occasional shift of the building as it settled deeper into its own fatigue. Then, without warning, she made a sound. A hum. low, soft. Not a melody he recognized. Not a language, either. It wove through the air like smoke, settling in corners, brushing against him. The song didn't rise or fall. It simply was. Like her. The child shifted, curling tighter. Calen leaned back against the wall. He didn't want to interrupt it. Whatever it was. And then she added words. Or what might have been words. Liquid consonants, vowels that didn't belong in any known syntax. Alien. Intimate. It wasn't beautiful. But it was human. In some broken, undeniable way. He closed his eyes. Let the sound pull against the tight knots in his chest. Not loosening them. But naming them. He heard her voice crack just once as if a note carried a memory she didn't expect. He opened his eyes again. Her eyes were closed. He didn't ask what the song meant. He wouldn't understand. But he listened. The song ended. She opened her eyes. Looked at him for the first time since they'd entered the room. And in that glance, he saw what she hadn't said. She had no intention of staying. But tonight, the girl needed warmth. And that was reason enough. He nodded. She said nothing. From the mattress, a small voice murmured, not quite awake. Someone, still here. Calen looked down. Yeah, he whispered. I'm here. It started with the collar. Calen had seen hundreds of trackers in his lifetime. From military implants to smuggler beacons, tech always left fingerprints. But hers, Letha's, was different. It didn't blink. Didn't transmit impulses. It radiated a constant frequency, barely perceptible unless you knew where to look. And Calen knew where to look. He was fixing the broken sensor array in his apartment's ceiling panel when she passed beneath the ladder. Just for a second, the tool in his hand pinged. A proximity alert. He froze. You have a collar, he said, without thinking. She didn't stop walking. Didn't flinch. It doesn't lock, she replied. Later that night, after the girl had fallen asleep curled between the blanket and the coat, Calen sat at the edge of the room and finally asked what had been circling his thoughts for days. Who were you? Before the alley. She didn't answer right away. Her hands moved slowly, checking the child's temperature with the back of her fingers. The girl had been feverish the night before. Letha hadn't slept. Finally, she spoke. You asked the wrong way. Ask what I stopped being. Okay, he said. What did you stop being? Feared. Calen didn't push. He waited. Waited as the low hum of the city beyond the window filled the room like background static. She sat down beside the child, her knees tucked close. Her voice was softer now. I was a commander. 8th ring. Viren resistance. We fell in 4 nights. I didn't die. So I became inconvenient. He looked at the collar again. A thin metal band. Seamless. They kept you tagged. I let them. That made him pause. She met his gaze for the first time since her admission. There was no pride there. No regret, either. I wasn't sold. I just didn't run. He didn't know how to answer that. The child stirred, whispered something unintelligible and rolled closer into her side. Letha stroked the girl's hair with fingers that trembled only once. Calen saw it. The tremble. She wiped at her face quickly. She's not yours, is she? He asked, quieter now. Letha shook her head. We found her in the wreckage. She was sitting. Just sitting. Amid the burning. He tried to picture it but failed. What kind of child just sits in fire and waits? And you took her? No, I waited. 4 hours. She wouldn't leave. So I stayed. The air felt colder now. The heater had gone quiet again. He reached for a blanket and handed it toward her. She took it without thanks, wrapping the child first, then herself. He didn't mind the silence. Not this time. Morning bled into the room in faint gray streaks. The girl woke slowly, blinking up at Letha and mumbling something only she could understand. Then she giggled. Just once. And reached out. Mama. The word pierced through the quiet like a clean blade. Letha didn't respond. Her body didn't move. But her eyes filled. Calen didn't speak. He watched as she blinked twice, then turned her head away. Later that day, the girl found scraps of old cartons and broken still uses from Calen's workbench. She drew with the stubby tips, not asking for permission. He glanced over her shoulder. She had drawn 3 shapes. Stick figures. One tall. One with long hair. One small, in between. Family, in silence. Calen didn't know what he was anymore. A witness? A mistake? But as he looked at the drawing, and then at the woman who once led a war, he realized something simple. He hadn't rescued her. She had chosen not to run. And somehow, that choice had led her to stay. At least for now. The alert came just after midnight. A faint pulse in the air, barely a whisper. But Letha felt it. Calen only noticed the flicker on his terminal, a ghost signal bouncing off the subgrid. At first, he thought it was a power fluctuation. But when he turned, she was already standing by the window. She wasn't looking out. Just listening. They found us, she said calmly. Calen didn't ask how she knew. He just knew she did. She crouched beside the child, who was still asleep on the mattress, and gently gathered her in both arms. The girl stirred but didn't wake. We can run, Calen said. I know routes. I know people. She smiled. Not the way humans smile, but something quieter. More resigned. A breath in place of hope. It would end the same way, she said. He stepped closer, but she stopped him with a look. Not harsh. Just final. You didn't buy me, she said softly. Then held the child out to him, wrapped in the red coat she'd always used as a blanket. But let me buy her freedom. Calen froze. I can't just let you dash. You were the first person who didn't ask me to explain myself, she interrupted, eyes steady. Don't ruin that. She pressed the child into his arms. The warmth of her small body hit him like a tidal wave. The girl whimpered in her sleep, her tiny hand reaching blindly for the folds of Letha's coat. The collar on Letha's neck shimmered faintly in the half-light. It wasn't pulsing. Just glowing. Like it knew its purpose was nearly fulfilled. She knelt for one last time beside the girl. Brushed a lock of hair from her forehead. "If she asks," Letha whispered, "tell her I never let go." Then she stood. The room felt smaller without her kneeling. She wrapped a strip of red cloth around her shoulder, part of the child's blanket, torn with care. It looked like a sash. Or a signal. Outside, the white lights of patrol crafts were already visible. Harsh, sterile beams cutting through fog and shadow. No sirens. Just inevitability. Calen stepped forward. "Don't," he said. His voice cracked. She didn't look back. "Stay with her," she replied. And walked into the light. He didn't follow. Couldn't. His knees buckled before the door hissed shut behind her. Through the cracked window, he saw it, Letha walking slowly, deliberately, into the center of the beam. Her silhouette framed in white. The red on her shoulder a single flame in a field of ash. No struggle. No restraint. Only surrender with dignity. The child in his arms shifted. "Mama," she murmured. Her fingers had found the corner of the red coat still bundled around her. They clutched it tight. Calen couldn't answer. Not yet. He pressed his lips to the top of her head. And stared into the light until it was gone. The snow came late that year. It blanketed the outpost in soft layers, muting the world in slow, deliberate hushes. Calen stood at the window of the modest learning center he built with his own hands, wood, metal, and stubbornness, watching it fall. Behind him, laughter echoed faintly. Children. Lessons. Among them was a girl, now nearly grown, with streaks of silver in her dark hair. She laughed louder than the others. Moved quicker. Smiled less, but when she did, it stayed. She had stopped asking questions years ago. But sometimes, in quiet moments, she would trace the edge of a red strip of fabric folded into the lining of her jacket. And Calen would see it in her eyes, the question still lived there. Just no longer needed words. She called him Calen. Not father. Never asked to. He never asked her to. But when she was 10, she found a worn drawing hidden in a drawer. 3 stick figures. One tall. One small. One with long hair. "Who drew this?" she asked. "You did," he replied. She had stared at it for a long time. "Why don't I remember? Some things you draw before you can speak them." She nodded, satisfied. Folded it carefully. Never asked again. There were other relics. A tiny bracelet made of thread. A chipped cup with Viren glyphs. And the red cloth. Always the red cloth. Calen never moved it. Never replaced it. She wore it now tucked under the collar of her jacket, like a whisper. A memory folded in. One night, years later, she came to him while he was cataloging old mechanical parts for trade. She didn't knock. "Was it raining?" she asked. He looked up. "That day," she clarified. The first day. Was it raining? He smiled. The kind that bends with time. It always rains in stories like ours. She sat across from him, hands folded. And what did you feel? He paused. Let the silence grow roots. I felt like someone had just seen me, he said. She tilted her head. Seen you how? As someone. Not a soldier. Not a buyer. Not a man trying to survive. Just, someone. She didn't speak right away. Then reached into her jacket and unfolded a paper she had redrawn dozens of times, the old stick figure drawing. But now, it had new lines. A fourth figure. Dimly penciled. Watching from above. She was light, the girl said. Calen nodded. She was. When the center closed for the day, they walked home through falling snow. The girl, no longer quite a child, walked ahead, coat flapping. She moved like someone who had chosen her steps long before she took them. At their door, she turned. I don't remember the alley, she said. But I remember warmth. Calen looked at her, eyes stinging with a grief that had softened into gratitude. That's all she wanted you to remember. Inside, on the shelf, was a folded strip of red, a child's drawing in a glass frame, and a line etched into the wood beneath it. The day someone saw me. I became someone. The snow kept falling. And Calen, though older now, no longer waited for the past to return. Because in the girl who walked beside him, it already had. Just in a brighter form. She was never just someone he saved. She was the reason he stopped running. And the girl she left behind was not a reminder of loss, but a living echo of a love that asked for nothing, but gave everything. Some lights don't stay, but they change the dark they leave behind. This wasn't a story about rescue. It was a story about being seen. And sometimes, that's enough to rewrite everything. To those who leave quietly, but never truly go. UFO Love and Hate, subscribe for more human stories from beyond the stars.